Hey everyone. I'm waiting on Mary.
It's actually Alice and Erica.
Okay.
I will
That's
email
right.
them. I'll email them now and ask.
And Jody said she's, oh, Jody's there. Hi, Jody.
I was just gonna say, I emailed saying I was gonna be late, but I actually have to leave early, so I'm sorry.
No, that's what I get for talking before looking at my screen. And then Kamisha's trying to get on as well.
Okay.
So Erica says that she's waiting for the host to start the meeting. Are you thinking maybe she went?
And who's the person that you're waiting for?
Erica Jenny John.
I don't see her in the attendees list.
Maybe she's using an old link, Jennifer.
Can I send her mine or will that
No,
work?
if you send her to the city calendar, just have her go through the public link, and then when she pops up in attendees, I can promote her to panelist. That'll probably be the easiest at this point.
Okay. And Alice is actually saying the same thing. Yep. So let me do that.
I just put the public link in the Zoom chat if that would be easier to send it to them.
So is there a new link that gets generated for every meeting? Is that what's happening currently? Okay. I never received the link for this one.
Yeah.
Until, thank you for sending it to me.
You have an old Zoom link on your calendar. You might want to delete it because that was from when I was setting up the meetings, and now they're being set up in the city manager's office. So you'll get an email every month with a new link just for you. So you might want to delete, like if you have an old calendar invite or an old email that you're using, you might want to delete that one so it's not confusing. And Ellen, I guess you weren't on the list previously, so I asked him to add you to the list now.
Great, thank you.
I'm gonna see who he has on his list. Let's see if there's anybody else that needs to be added. And if Kamisha Spencer is in the public list, she can be moved to panelist. I sent her the link as well to get in, because she also didn't have the email.
Is this the new link that I should save for this meeting or?
I think you get a unique link every month.
Gotcha,
So
okay.
you'll get an email, and then you should be getting reminders. Like I know I got one yesterday that said program meeting starts in 1 day, and then I got one today. But you'll be getting an email every month with your specific link to join the meeting. I was just saying I want to double check his distribution list and make sure he has everybody that needs to get the email.
So I guess we can go ahead and get started if everybody's ready. Did everyone have a chance to look over the agenda? Any changes we need to make on it? Any additions? Good to go. All right. What about our notes from last month? Did everyone have an opportunity to review those? And they look good to me, I know. So, all right. Our evidence-based practices training, follow-up discussion. Do we have any additional discussion on that?
I think that's where the whole Chin's conversation came from. Krista,
Mhm.
What time is Mark coming?
Yeah, he is coming at 3:15.
Okay,
So,
we can just table that till when he comes.
okay, that's what I thought. I thought that's where that came from. All right. Updates, Frat, Erica, or Albemarle.
Sure. So I think one of the things that has stood out to me that we kind of mentioned in our FAPT meetings is just the number of transgender youth that are coming through seeking services, especially through the CHIN's determination, which is pretty cool and exciting to see that coming through and with folks letting us know preferred pronouns and names and such. And so what we've done is I asked Jennifer if she could put that on our agendas when folks have a preferred name that is different than what the name might be that gets connected to Thomas Brothers or whatever system. So we were able to do that for the first time this week, which was helpful for me, at least as a facilitator, to not butcher folks. Other than that, I don't know that anything's too different from the last couple months. I know just in general, still concerns about long waiting lists and needing providers. I don't know if we have an adequate supply of providers to serve the LGBTQ plus community. It comes to mind just with seeing the increase in numbers of folks coming through seeking services. So still a lot of concrete needs. The housing crisis is really, really challenging to navigate, and dental services. Those are the things that I hear spinning around DSS world anyway, specific to DSS, but in general for FAPS, the same one.
All right, thanks, Erica. City FAPT, Katie, do you have anything?
Not much. I think we had a discussion recently about providers not taking Medicaid and how that's impacting service availability and the rates that providers are going to charge for other services in terms of increasing their rates. And so we just had a discussion about that. And I think we're going to see that as a trend with, outpatient counseling and those types of things. But other than that, we're doing okay.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
CSA coordinators, back to Katie and Jennifer.
Trying
Much
to
of an
think.
update, Jennifer.
Not a whole lot. I guess
We
OCS put out the memo about the low performing CSA programs that they've hired a position to help work with the localities that they've identified as being low performing. So they're using the data that's available to them to determine who those localities are. And then I guess they'll be reaching out to them to work with them on how to improve. I know we're not a part of that. I'm not aware of anything like that. So, but my guess is things may come out of that as a result of whatever they may end up working with folks on. So there's a question that sometimes I think if like they work with a locality and they come up with some great thing, they may want to use it like broader, but we'll see. It's brand new and the position's new. So I think there's a lot of stuff for them to figure out.
And we are due for audits next fiscal year, Albemarle and Charlottesville. But I don't anticipate us being in that group. We had the CSA conference last week. It's a little difficult to do virtually. And, you know, a lot of it was other localities kind of sharing how what they've been doing, and, you know, hearing other localities talk about things they're doing. I feel like we're doing pretty well. You know, I didn't feel like there were any, like, you know, huge ideas that came out of it that I thought we could adopt that we aren't already doing. So I don't know, Jennifer, if you have anything else to share from the conference.
I don't think so. Other than Fairfax, man, like they have so much.
Because they have like 20 CSA people.
Yes. So they can do a lot over there that we just don't have available to us. But anyway, yeah, that's all I can think of.
Thank you both. Partner agency updates. What is going on with your agencies? Anything new?
Nothing really new. We, like so many industries and DSSs across the state, we're continue to be challenged by our vacancies, both with regards to filling them and then also with regards to ensuring critical work is completed. So everybody's pitching in, but it's an awful lot to be asking of everybody.
I would say the same for us. I have one PO in the office and then the intake officer who's not here every day. Seth is teleworking. His baby was due today. The baby hasn't come yet, so he's still teleworking, but then he'll be on paternity leave for 4 weeks after that. We advertised for Charlottesville PO position. We only have 13 applicants. And we usually get about 70 some, between 50 and 70. So I'm a little concerned that how that's going to pan out. Anyone else?
I don't know that there's that much to update from Region 10. We're just continuing on. I think, fortunately, case management is fully staffed. Outpatient is doing what they're doing. They do have some, as is so frequent around the area, I think there's some wait list that's happening, but they're trying to move through it pretty quickly. As we are in case management, I think we don't currently have a wait list though. Or I don't know that we can have a wait list. We just keep trying to staff things. So I don't know what else. I think that's probably the most I can say. There are definitely in the larger agency many more positions that are needing to be filled, and that certainly is a situation with us as well, particularly in the adult services. And so you may experience more of an impact when parents are trying to engage in Region 10 services versus our child population. So, and continuing to work on hiring and filling those spots. I think that's it.
Thank Dawn.
I have an update for community attention. Sorry, my computer is like not letting me unmute without turning off my camera. So that's why I have my camera off. It keeps freezing up. So we actually are fully staffed for our Evergreen program, which is the grant funded program for the victims of crime. So we have our community-based position that has been hired, and that person is actually starting on Monday. So we are taking referrals from the schools from Walker and Beaufort. If anyone has any clients that are victims of crime in those schools. We also are dealing with a bit of a staff issue. We have one of our staff out for a couple of months actually on maternity leave. So our staff numbers are low, but we're working around it and then still trying to figure out some programming that we have going on. So we aren't quite fully in person. We're still doing a lot of virtual services for Teens Give, KYIP, and community support, which is our form of mentoring. We're doing a lot of virtual with that, but slowly transitioning to in-person contact as well. So our hope is that KYIP for the next session will be in person, and we'll be able to secure a few sites that our participants who've gone through the virtual can go into those sites and work a second round of KYIP. So that's where we kind of are right now.
Thanks, Kamisha. Any more updates or anything regarding service provision during COVID?
So we are definitely open and very open. I was reflecting on what Erica said. So I am pretty excited, and I feel like I fell down on the job. So I'm going to apologize because we're trying to keep our head above waters in the schools right now. And I think we're mostly doing okay, depending what day you catch a particular human. But we are starting the third Wednesday in November. I don't actually know the day, and I'm sure that I'm supposed to. But we are starting a training of the trainer for this workbook with the author of this workbook. And we are super excited. We have, I think, right now 25 staff who are going to be trained. And so our goal is to get our 25 staff up and running and feel competent and confident to then redeliver this reflection workbook. And it's very much geared at teachers and support staff for schools. So we can start making sure that we're providing a safe and supportive environment for our kids, our trans and non-binary students, but also making sure that we're providing that safe space for our staff and parents. And I will also say that there is a workbook for parents that is a complementary workbook to this workbook. So if you're working, obviously with caretakers, and I have a bunch of copies if somebody wants to borrow one before you buy one, or, there's a third workbook. It might be for partners, or I can't remember exactly who it's for, but it's a great resource, and it's really about the work that you yourself need to do, or that person needs to do. It's a good starting place, I would say. It's part educational and then part sort of that self-awareness reflection piece that, at least from my perspective in the schools, we often skip over that and then wonder why things are not going so well. So I am acutely aware that we don't have enough resources as far as individual counselors and all of those things, but I'm staying hopeful that starting kind of in this arena will allow at least us at the schools to start building a safe and equitable space. So we're starting that, like I said, in November. Our training runs all the way through May, and then we're working towards one of the expectations to be part of this cohort is that there will be redelivery of this workbook with smaller cohorts as we pair up and go back out into the world in our school system. So I cannot make any promises to this group, but I do think if this is something you're interested in and we had trainers within, like people who are more confident or comfortable to do that, I certainly would be open to talking about it, because I do know that when I was searching for a facilitator and a trainer, like it was not easy. It was not easy to find somebody. It was not easy to coordinate. It was just so certainly, and I know that Dee, who is doing it for us, if it was somebody that you wanted to talk to, I certainly could connect as well. So I'm excited about that. I think the schools right now are really focusing on obviously equity, but also just trying to help our school mental health professionals become more competent and confident in a wide area and arena of the supports for all of our kids, because of all the things that you guys are talking about, just that our community supports are awesome, but we also know there's waiting lists and there's all sorts of things. And we have increased our capacity, honestly, by close to 20%, and it's still not enough for what we're seeing from our kids, and our staff are stressed. So that's where we're at, but I'm still feeling pretty positive, and it's November. So I'm just gonna keep hanging in there.
That's great information, Jody. Thank you for sharing that. Anything else about service provision?
It does occur to me that I should have want to make sure that folks know that at Albemarle High School, we now have one of the crisis counselors from the Child and Family Program is sort of permanently based there, as well as we have a therapist from our Child and Family Program that's also on site at Albemarle High School, in addition to the SAP counselor that's there. So it's just another resource that's being put at schools.
I just texted Mark to see if he was able to jump on any earlier. He can actually jump on at 2:30, and that would work better for him if everybody's good with that. If we want to go ahead with that.
I think that'd be great. I have to jump off at 3, so that I would appreciate that.
Okay. So yeah, we'll wait for him to pop in. UR guidance. I know we mentioned to CPMT that we need a policy change. And Katie, I think you and Jennifer were going to work on some language for that. Any update regarding that?
Yeah, so we were gonna try to put that forward this month. I think we wanted to get some feedback from program, because we put together our samples in terms of, well, we put together a list of all the kids receiving mentoring and the providers. And I think when we went to look at our sample, we were curious if there was interest in just doing it randomly, or making sure we have an equal amount of independent mentors and agency mentors that we're looking at. I know in the city, I'm looking at our list right now, we have 43 cases. And out of those, there's 2 independent mentors that are providing services for 18 of those 43. We have 1 independent mentor that's on like 16 cases. And so, I guess we just wanted to, Jennifer, I don't know if you want to share. I know you had we were trying to figure out the community attention stuff last time, because those weren't coming up for you guys. But just wanted to get feedback on if anybody has thoughts or feelings about how to break that into our sample.
So for us, we had 55 cases. Sorry. We've got, it looks like, I think it's about 5 independent mentors, and then 1, 2, 3. I think 8 are with agencies. So like about 13 total. like Katie was saying, it's just that concern. If you pull a random sample, you may, is it going to capture what you're looking for? Like, would it be better to pull a certain size sample from independent mentors and then a certain size from agencies, or?
And we also have 8 agency mentoring agencies represented. So, do we want to pull at least one case from each of those 8, to look at the different agencies too? Because that's what we're trying to compare, or look at, I shouldn't say compare. Like, is that
Right.
important or not?
So like if Katie and I both pulled a sample and it included the same agency, would it be better to do one case from either the city or the county? That way you just have more of a representation of the different types of mentors that we have.
In terms of Ellen, do you have any thoughts about what the best thing to do would be?
I mean, my initial thought is that it seems like it would make sense to pull from, from all of the agencies and the independent mentors and have a representation rather than a random pooling where we might not get some of those agency responses. If we're trying to sort of assess the service provision overall.
Yeah, I guess if we want it to be a representative sample based on the provider. So for example, in the city, we have like 10 cases through People Places. So, that's more than anybody else. So maybe we would want to put forward a few from People Places, and we could certainly randomly pick within the People Places group, if you will. I think that makes sense to have our sample representative of the providers.
Yeah, I think that, to me, that makes the most sense. I would, welcome other thoughts.
I agree. I like that idea.
Makes sense.
Okay, so Jennifer and I can do that and then put those cases forward to Ellen. Are you guys okay with that? And then we can start getting, and we'll, Ellen, I guess before you actually started working on it, we'll have to get the CPMT policy changed. But then after that, we should be good to go.
Okay, great. That sounds good.
Does that work for you, Jennifer?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Sounds good. So the language, do you want to send things out? Jody had to go. Do you want to send that out for us to review when you get it?
I think it's
ready?
just.
Do you have it ready now?
No, we don't have it ready. I mean, I think it's, so right now in our policy, it says UR can be completed on a case specific basis as referred by FAPT or in a congregate care placement. So we just need to add a third criteria, I think, and it will really just be a sentence or two about, I don't know how we're going to say it, but I don't think it's going to be a big, huge deal.
Right. And we didn't want to make it specific to mentoring, because if we ever wanted to try to do UR on other things, like we just want to have the ability for CPMT to put that in the local policy that UR can be completed on other types of services besides those.
So maybe it's like a UR service review of CSA cases or something like that, where it's service specific, I guess, not child specific.
Yep.
So you guys are welcome. If you can send it to you guys if you want, but it's going to be pretty simple, I think.
No, I don't have a desire to see it if, if we don't need to. Thank you. All right, welcome, Mark. We have Mark here early. Thank you, Mark. We'll go back up on our agenda to evidence-based practices or training and our follow-up discussion, because we were having the discussion around CHINs and services and all of that good stuff. So Mark is here and can answer questions that we might have regarding that discussion. I know I wasn't present for the initial discussion. But my recollection is, and then I know what Jenny had updated me on, programs was talking about potentially forming a work group regarding services for our CHINS youth. Am I right?
I think it might be helpful to start out with Jenny, Krista, that you previously at another meeting had mentioned that there was this other work group underway, and I would love to hear what that group's been working on and that sort of thing. What their focus is, all of that good stuff.
Well, and part of what we
Okay.
had talked about was we didn't want to do the same thing if there was something already in progress.
Correct. So yes, there is a CHINS work group getting started. I know that's part of our Georgetown Capstone project that we are doing also with the Annie Casey Foundation. And I will Mark is actually leading up that work group. And I know it's in the very beginning stages, but I will let him tell you as far as the work group goals. Is that what you're asking, work goals, and who is on, or who we're looking at putting on that work group? So I'll turn to Mark and I'll let you guys ask questions.
Can you all hear me?
Mhm.
Yeah, so the part of the, can't hear me, Ellen? Speak up.
Yeah, it's a little low.
It's a little low, Mark.
Have the same settings. I just jumped off of another meeting. All right, well, let's, let me just talk louder. As you all know, I can definitely talk a little louder.
That's better.
Sorry, I've been on this all day. All right, so yeah, so coming out of that Georgetown thing, we do have the capstone, we do have a work group coming up. That work group, however, encompasses all three levels of our CHINS. It's the CHINS truancy, CHINS runaway, as well as CHINS services. So if we want to divide those up, it sounds like you all are looking more so with the idea of CHINS services, right? So part of the request for the changes that we're looking at in the work group that we're starting up right now are how can we combat the influx of CHINS requests through the courts prior, that don't reach any of the thresholds that our office as well as legislation requires us to do before it gets in front of a judge. We do understand that there are certain cases where we need to expedite for placement purposes, things like that. And that's not anything that's on our purview because in one sense, a lot of those kids don't stand the risk of detention, which is a big focus of ours. So one of the purposes that we're looking at in this work group is what can we do in the community, both through all of our different respective offices to have a collaboration and put our heads together before it even gets to a point that the youth would need to go in front of a judge. Because, in my meetings with all 6 of our judges that we have in our district, they're not necessarily able to sit down and hear in details the same way that we hear in details at FAPT, at meetings like this, or whatever the case may be. They're literally throwing it back to FAPT. Like, I don't know how many cases we filed for CHINS because the family can't control the kid. And all the judge says is refer to FAPT, tell FAPT, get recommendations and send it back to us. So it's kind of like we're kicking the can down the street just so that we can have some sort of comfort that now a judge is hearing it because in the hopes that that's going to change the kid's behavior, which we know it doesn't, because the kid only sees the judge for a certain part, and then judges aren't allowed to detain kids off of CHINS services anyway. And that was very clear from our chief judge, Tinsley, about that. So, one of our focuses are, we still know that we need to help these kids. Like, these kids are still a priority for the community. So what can we do so that we're removing any barriers that either our office or the courts might be putting up for services for kids. And two, the other aspect is, what can we do now? Or how can we maybe change some sort of philosophies or whatever the case may be for these families to understand the accountability piece without having to have them go in front of the court. So that's mainly the focuses that we're looking at through the CHINS work group. I mean, we would love to, as I know a lot of people, to eradicate, within our office, the CHINS, the outside requests for CHINS, and keeping it kind of in-house for, if DSS needs it for funding or whatever the case may be, we can handle it that way. But majority of our cases, a lot of the cases that are coming in now are from families saying that their kid is cussing them out. That's not rising to the occasion that we need a CHINS. Disrespect is not a CHINS request. That's part of growing up and dealing with children. So that's one of the things that we're looking at, to try to have a family with lived experience on that work group, because apparently what we're saying is not resonating with families in the community right now, because they're currently in the hurricane of
Did it freeze for everybody else or just me? Okay. Well, hold on. We lost you, Mark, but I'm sure you realize that. He's disconnecting his VPN, but interferes constantly with it.
Sorry about that. I forgot to turn off VPN. And a lot of times VPN messes up when I'm not actually in the office. So yeah, so kind of like what I was saying, just trying to make sure that we can have a good conversation with families, to let them, to see what it is that they're expecting. A lot of our youth, a lot of the families are expecting our staff to detain the youth because they have a CHINS. And when we talked with, when our staff, myself,
Take 3.
all right, I don't want to risk the, I'm gonna just use my phone because clearly I don't know what's going on with my internet today. So can you all still hear me? Can you all hear me now? Okay, got you. Sorry about that. This has never happened, but yeah, so just trying to, I keep losing my train of thought, but let me see my notes real quick. But basically just trying to see what the families need in our community, as well as seeing what it is we could do before they even get to our door. Like we've seen cases within Charlottesville, and we talk about Albemarle as well, that probably should have never touched the doorsteps of the court, and that we could have rectified before it even got in front of the judge, because everything that was said was done from, in one sense, what FAP required us to do. So how can we kind of fix that issue going forth? Because for some reason right now, we didn't have COVID before we started Georgetown, but I think COVID really intensified some of the reasons why we need to do this, because from hearing from my staff and then seeing the caseloads that our offices, the courts are seeing, it's a high amount of chins that are pouring into the court that we're trying to figure out how can we stop this, because we want to get the services to the kids before they even get into the court. So that's some of the ideas that the work group is. The work group will consist of course, myself and some people from the courts, as well as attorneys, social workers, and a big amount of community support and community providers. So, and of course, if we can get family, that's the main emphasis of it as well. So that's what our work group would focus on for the CHINS subcommittee.
Mark, do you have some of those members identified already? Like,
I
how
do.
far are you along in that?
Yeah, I have about 4. It's a slow process trying to work with people. So I have about 4 that have kind of said that they are willing to work. I know that we don't want to have a 20-person work group, but some of the focus of this work group is also truancy. So a big piece is the school aspect of it and what we can do to kind of be on the cutting edge of services for kids in the school and trying to get a big push for that. So schools probably will take up maybe 1/3, even half of the people on the work group, but we also are looking for other people. And that's something that we're looking to kind of re-kick off sometime mid-November.
Chris, I was thinking you at another meeting said you'd double check to see if there was any possible way that county could have representation on the work group, that you knew as a starting point, it was outside the parameters of the capstone project. I know what the Casey Foundation has said, but I just wanted to check back in on that.
Right. And we haven't been able to have a meeting with their team since then. We do plan to bring county in. It's kind of at what point we're going to bring them in. And we want to do that in consultation with Casey. We have a technical assistant who kind of guides us on when and how to strategically do certain steps. So that is something we've talked about. We do know that, of course, anything we're doing with the city, we want to include the county. It's just a matter of when, and I don't have a better answer at the moment. Hopefully, let's see, next month, December, hopefully after the first of the year, we can talk a little bit more about that. We have a limited number of meetings. We do have one this month, so we'll talk about it a little bit. We have one next month, but our meetings for these couple of months are few and far between, but that is something on the agenda to discuss.
I would also just advocate for that. I mean, to me, it doesn't make sense to put the energy into a work group when we're leaving out half of our community that we navigate through and work around. So as somebody who sits between both Charlottesville City and Albemarle County at Region 10, to me, it would be a huge benefit to have both city and county represented, particularly in the CHINS discussion as it moves through. I think, frequently when we're talking about services, Region 10 is constantly trying to navigate between truancy issues and service issues as we're trying to support families. And it is regularly coming back to us with families feeling frustrated, providers feeling frustrated, therapists feeling frustrated with how do we, hold some accountability and figure these things out. And so, and that's not just a Charlottesville City service provider issue. That's a much larger discussion that gets impacted in all of those facets. So that would be my hope. And that was part of what we were talking about here in program was how can we, exactly what you guys are saying is address these things thoughtfully before it even gets to a court door. And certainly I think frequently we're making that recommendation from Region 10, to families who are feeling like they've done everything. We've done what we can to provide services, and then how to hold some accountability. The only way that we've been able to do it is sort of through the court in the history of services. So looking for other ways of managing that collaboratively would be welcomed. And I would love to be a part of that discussion. But it's a regular daily discussion that is coming up multiple times throughout the week. And so I look forward to hearing some different ideas and ways that we can support families in this area.
I do want to say that I think, Ellen, it's a critical distinction of the challenge. A good bit of what I heard you identifying, Mark, is families coming directly to you with kids and they haven't gotten services and you don't want them in court. And that is indeed its own issue and certainly needs to be addressed, but it is a separate issue and also in need of address is when you have systems involvement like Region 10 is case managing, and the issue is not access to services or DSS is involved. The issue is not service access. The issue is how are we getting this kid engaged in that? We, as Ellen said, the historical reference with, sometimes some court accountability. But if we're not going that route, and there are definitely good reasons not to, like what is the route and how do we do that? And so that's its own challenge that I think warrants considerable discussion.
Right.
Thank you, Alice, for adding that clarification point. Yeah.
Yes. So the 2 points of that you all were talking about, the one about parents coming directly to us and Region 10 or whatever might be coming to us, unless they're not reaching my desk or being brought to me and they're being diverted prior, majority of them are, and I will say, and I'm just trying to separate from all the other 9 counties that we oversee, the difference of, I believe that majority of them are families calling us directly. Our staff in Charlottesville, the intake officer, Kiana, is really good with asking the questions. And if it is something that, Region 10 or DSS told me, she will, keep that case open and then reach out to Region 10 and DSS or the schools or whoever it might be to get more information. So, I mean, that's there. And we have filed for those cases. But when we're looking at it, and one of the issues that we had were families just coming off, and not even just you all, but police departments sending families, like a kid is cussing them out, they're being unruly, which is very subjective. And then they're saying that this kid needs to go in front of the court and have a chins. Those are some of the bigger things that we're trying to combat with this, in addition to, of course, the cases that are already in front of you all with services, right? Like, so those aren't really necessarily discussions that we really have, because if a kid is in front of counseling, and the threshold is kind of small to even get a chance in one sense, all the family has to do is actively go get services for a kid, actively reach out to Region 10, try to get the kid to Region 10. If the kid refuses to go, that right there initiates our office to step in to either open up a diversion, or we're at our point where we've already tried diversion and we know this is not happening, to send it to the court. Those cases are being pushed through, and for CHIN services. And we do have representation through Krista's unit that sits at those hearings. So yeah, so the bigger focus that our officers we were looking at were those cases coming straight off the street that had no services. But what I'm hearing you all saying is that you're seeing a barrier, or maybe not a barrier, but you all want to maybe look at how to improve when there's a kid that's already in front of, Region 10 or DSS is working, the whatever foster care may be to get the service, and the kid is just not doing the service, not going, right? But it's also a big difference of a kid not going and a kid not engaging. The statute doesn't talk about not engaging. If the kid is going, we know within the modalities, we can't force somebody to start talking, but if they're refusing to go and refusing to participate, that's a big difference than just not reaching those milestones that maybe the therapist might want, or our office might want, or DSS or the schools might want. So I think that all right there is good information. I wrote it down. We definitely want to address that. And I'm definitely not opposed to a couple of slots for the chins to be with county. Because the reality of it is, I do think that county has a bigger populace, clearly, of youth that will be affected by this. We had to, of course, separate in order to get the grant because it had to be Charlottesville only. But now that we've got the grant and we're kind of moved past, a lot of that. I know Krista wasn't opposed to it, and I know I'm not opposed to it with Albemarle joining in and jumping in with this. But like we said, we have to kind of go with what our TA says. I'm trying to figure out where in that process. But I do think the committees might be a good process for that, to kind of kickstart and jump that combined support, because it's all pretty much the same providers with Charlottesville and Albemarle. We're not really pulling anybody different. So, yeah.
Well, unfortunately, I'm going to have to jump off at 3, but one thing that occurs to me as I hear you talk is that I think it would be super helpful for DSS, and I imagine other systems like Region 10, maybe the schools, if you could send out to us, so we have it as a reference document, what your thresholds are for referrals, and in what instances a child does get before the court. When you all joined child welfare supervisors with Albemarle some months back in a conversation, like partly we did that because it was not our experience that the youth you noted that they are getting pushed through. It was not our experience at that time that they were getting pushed through. That's in part what prompted us to invite you to come talk with us about that. So I think if that's occurring, it would be helpful in certain instances if we had the guidelines about when we might expect that and when we wouldn't expect that to happen because, whatever threshold had not been met.
Right, and I definitely understand that. One thing that I'll be clear about is from that conversation with the supervisor with that, you all were only bringing up 2 specific cases that were out of our control. It wasn't a pattern. So one thing about this is we definitely understand that we're working together, and but I don't think it's a pattern of our office denying any of your offices the case to file anything, because you all have attorneys to file as well. But I think to clear it up, I definitely don't mind sending out some sort of guidance document. It's something that we do have readily available. I get my staff to put it together specific for you all, but just know that it is still a case-by-case basis. We still do, we have guidance, but then again, based off of each individual youth, it still might not go through for the best interest of the child, or it might go through because of the best interest of the child, where one case is another. So yeah, so it's overall, the guidance comes specifically from the code. So if y'all want the code, I can send you all the code also. But yeah, I'm not sure. I would like to sit down maybe and hear specifically from Albemarle County DSS about the specific concern cases that you all did have, because from the last conversation we had, it was just one case, 2 cases specifically that were out of the norm cases that we pushed through. So, it would be nice to see what the concerns are, like specific concerns, and see where we can rectify or maybe resolve or have a little more clarity as to the why. But yeah, I definitely will get my staff to put something together specifically so that we can just send it out, just kind of show like the guidelines about what's going on with everything.
Well, and I do think the key part is not so much the code reference, so that's helpful. I think what would be most helpful is how you all interpret and apply it. Because they're, I know from working in DSS, I can read what the policy says, and then I can call up 10 different DSSs and it's all handled differently. So how you handle it in our region is what I'm interested in.
Okay, for sure. And I'll send the referral. We have a new referral source for that came out from a CHIN's truancy convener that we had with all the schools. We have a new referral, and the referral is actually really helpful for schools and providers about truancy and runaway. And we created one for services as well. So we definitely will. I'll get that out. I'll get it to Krista so she can send it out to you all.
Mark, could you share all three of those out with this group? Because that would be really helpful, just information to have as a basis, as a baseline.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you.
But I'll put a caveat that the only people that can file the truancy, of course, for the schools, the only people that file runaway is the guardians. So I don't want to see Region 10 sending us truancy stuff.
We are not, but and we would not, but sometimes we can help the schools to,
For sure.
I think a lot of times we're working with, trying to differentiate, is this a mental health issue that's keeping a kid
Right.
from attending, or is this, accountability? And usually it's a combination of all of us coming together, but it helps us, it helps me to be able to know what is, where some of those lines are and expectations. Yeah.
And with that, I will also send the agreement and plan that we have for truancy, runaway, and CHIN services for different. Because some of the cases that you all requesting are diversion eligible, right? They probably just need the accountability piece from the court service unit, which is fine. Other cases might say, oh, we're past threshold is simply mental health. We need a judge to order this kid because he's refusing to go to this counselor. And that's a whole nother story. And we just go ahead and no need to divert those. But yeah, so we'll get all that information. I'll get that put together and get it to Krista so she can give it to you all with everything. But like Krista said, I do think we have a meeting in a week or two with our technical assistants. But yeah, I know Krista agrees, we can definitely vouch that, try to bring you all on for this part before we start making some decisions, some policy decisions that will, of course, affect the county. So we definitely will probably need some representation on that one as well. And then that committee in my eyes are accountable to everybody, all the stakeholders. So we definitely, like, if all of the programs, if all of you all aren't on the committee, of course, our committee would be able to report out to you all about things. And, we will be open to critiques and also other guidance and routes that we might need to take for that. So we definitely have this group on our radar to, push things through to see what you all think about it, about policies we plan on making. Okay.
Are there any other questions? I know Mark has another commitment, but anything else before we let him go?
Thank you.
Before
Thank
he
you, Mark.
leaves?
Gotcha. And I get that stuff to Krista, and then I will send you all possibly reach out to get some names of suggestions for the committee. I think maybe, like, Krista, how many people did we say need to be on these committees? 10 or 12 or 8?
Probably no more than that, definitely.
No more, right?
8 to 12. Yeah.
8 to 12.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll definitely designate some. All right, perfect. Sorry about the technical difficulties. I don't know what's going on with my internet over here.
All right. Thank you, Mark. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye. See you tomorrow. Oh, we lost Alice too. Okay.
I think she had to leave for another meeting, and
Yeah.
we're getting those urgent, lots of red, exclamation point emails from folks. So it sounds like we've got a few crises going on. So hopefully I don't get pulled to, but Alice can hold down.
All right. Our focus areas do we have anything on any of our focus areas? I know we just reviewed our parent surveys as well as the provider surveys the last time. Do we have anything to discuss on case manager and provider input, any data review, service gaps, recommendations, family engagement? All right. Trauma-informed services, updates, reports from agencies. Okay. Any other or new business? All right. Any messaging out, anything for CPMT or others? I don't think so. All right. I guess we're adjourned then, unless anybody has anything else.
No, I just say thank you for coordinating, Mark, coming. It's I think the CHIN's discussion is really helpful and important.
Okay,
so
good.
Thank you for that.
Yes, it's hard for me to discuss it like he does because I'm after the fact. So
Yeah. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. And as I'm like processing all that he said, it may be helpful to revisit, and not necessarily in this form, maybe another if that's more appropriate, but the diversion conversation. Because I know that in his mind, he's remembering two specific cases that we talked about when he joined our meeting, but like Alice said, I think our experience has been a little bit different. So I think if we can best understand what to expect from the diversion process and best understand what to come from the CHIN's process, I think that'll help us, like Ellen was saying, coach families in the right direction. You know, I feel bad. I know I have questions for Mark. I'm still going on it and processing, but I appreciate that.
yeah, and I'm sure he's happy if you reach out to him with any questions as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You know, I worked in another locality that's all a little different, so it's interesting to try and, you know, we all have those changes from county to county. So
yes,
good stuff.
All right, well, it's good to see you guys. I guess we'll see each other in December after Thanksgiving. It's crazy. So
where did the year go?
I know.
COVID.
Yes.
It's a blur. It's in your hard drive somewhere.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.